So welcome to another episode of the Bagels and Bicep podcast. Let me just adjust this mic. And welcome to the new season again. So in today's episode, I wanted to speak on a few different points that I've had throughout the week. So the first one that I'm going to speak upon is intensity. So what do I mean by intensity? And it basically means how hard something is, or how hard your training is. So with intensity, we use different measures of intensity, especially in resistance training. You've got intensity, you've got intensity in cardio and that sort of thing. So you've got low, moderate intensity, steady state cardio, HIIT training, that sort of thing determines how intense something is. But in resistance training, we use mostly a scale which is called RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion. So again, how hard something is. And this scale is usually on a 1 to 10, so 10 being that you can't do any more reps, you've hit failure, failure being complete failure that you can't do no more, 9 being that you've got 1 rep left in the tank roughly. And again, I mean 1 rep as in really 1 rep. If I had the gun to your head and I was saying, do 1 rep or I'm going to shoot you in the head, you could do it. So RPE is a massive gauge of where you should be sitting in terms of your rep ranges and your session. So with clients, online clients especially, what I tend to do is give them a certain rep range and tell them to find where you fall in that rep range. The majority of the time, especially if you are a beginner or you're new, you don't really need to be going to failure. You don't really need to be going that close. But in order to adapt, you need to have some sort of stimulus and some sort of intensity. So, if you're working somewhere between 6 and 9 RPE, where you've got a couple reps left in the tank, then you are where you need to be. But what I often see on the gym floor, you see people doing a set of 10 reps, 3 sets of 10, which is the standard thing that you see. Sitting on the phone for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then going back into 2 and 10 reps, and nice and easy, not even breaking a sweat. And then going back onto the phone for 3 or 4 minutes, and then changing music and ringing a mate and all this. And we could optimize your training so much more just by increasing that intensity a little bit more. So I spoke about this in many videos. Go and check out previous podcasts about training theory. But basically, intensity, volume and frequency are the main factors of training. Volume being the amount of load or the amount of work that you do, usually on a given session or a given week or a given time period. I use it on a weekly basis, so usually it's set per muscle group per week. That's what we're trying to increase over time. But with that, you do have to have some sort of intensity. So if you've seen me in the gym, you know that my intensity is often quite high, but you've got to control it as much as possible. So when I mean working at an 8 RPE, you want to find something that is challenging, something that you can still manage with, form, great technique, control, contraction, which I'll come to in a minute. But something, that's really making you work in order to change. Again, in order to change, you've got to adapt. You've got to put some stimulus on the same muscle group. So the question off that is, what about, time under tension? Should I be slowing things down? That sort of thing. Time under tension can increase the intensity. If you've ever done a set of chest press, for example, and you've slowed it down, say 2 seconds down on the eccentric and then 2 seconds on the eccentric, then you probably find it really, really difficult. But recent studies have suggested that, it doesn't really matter as long as load is matched or volume is matched, how fast you go, as long as you are putting your muscle through that contraction. And that's what I want to come to, is contraction of muscles. So it's easy to do, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's easy to do 10 presses of chest like this, nice and easy. But then if you really think about squeezing and contracting your chest, it's 10 times harder. And that's what you want to try and think about at every single muscle, every single exercise. If you see a chest press, flat chest press that you're being prescribed, you want to know that, that is to primarily work your chest. Obviously, it's got supporting muscles like tricep and shoulders a little bit, but the main objective is to target the chest. So if you're coming off the back of them sets and you're not feeling it on your chest, you're not doing something right. Or something isn't, you're not lifting heavy enough, or the technique's not there, or you're not contracting the muscle enough. So I'd start there with contraction. So making sure that you're understanding the why behind the exercise that you are doing. Same with a lat pull down. That's a massive one. I had this mistake for years and years. It's a vertical pull. So you're just pulling it down from a vertical position for your quote unquote back muscles. But again, lat pull down, it says it in your name. You want to aim for the outer part of your back, which stems right the way down pretty much. So with that, what I started to do is not really feel it in my lats, and I was really struggling to contract my lat muscles. So from there, I worked backwards, did a single arm lat pull down where I could really feel the contraction on my lats, and then slowly got into the routine of implementing that into a full lat pull down and really noticing the change in my back muscles. But for years and years, I was just pulling it, probably yanking, probably swinging off the bar, trying to go too heavy too quickly with ego, and not actually targeting the muscle that I wanted to target. Probably getting injured in the process as well. Again, you might feel it a lot more in your bicep when you're doing a pull down. If that's the case, try and find something that's going to work for your back. Get some straps or something that's going to take the pressure away from your arms and put it primarily on your back. So yeah, so that's what I was saying about intensity. It's important within training. We want to make sure that we are being quite intense, and not all the time. This is why you might have seen things called a deload, which is basically an extended rest period, where you cut down on the intensity, cut down on the overall volume in order to progress in the long run. So going back, you've got what's called a mesocycle, which is like, you might have a program, and that program is probably split into 4 or 6 week blocks. That's what you call a mesocycle. So in that 4 or 6 weeks, you're constantly trying to progress, and then so you get to week 6, that might be your deload week. You know that it's coming up, then you drop the intensity and the volume in that week. But for the first 5 weeks, what we're looking to do is increase, progressively overload. We're looking to increase weight on exercises. We're looking to get better form. We're looking to increase reps on exercises, whatever it is, in order to progress every single week. But what you also want to do is you want to also think about intensity. So the higher the intensity, the harder it is to recover. So within the first few weeks, you're probably just focusing on RP 7, 8. But progressing with weight. If you're progressing with weight, you sound. But again, you've got to be progressing on a weight that's already challenging. You can't go and, if I run for 10 minutes, which is not that difficult, and then run for 11 minutes, it's not that difficult either. I really need to, test myself. So if I was to run for 30 minutes, which is like a 5K, which is quite difficult, and then run for 35 minutes, which is that little bit more intense and a little bit harder, then I will adapt on that. That's progressive overload. But me running 10 minutes compared to 11 minutes, it's not really going to change much. So that's where you want to start. You want to make sure that you are starting with a solid foundation, a good rep, a good load, a good rep range, and going from there. But what I was saying about intensity in the mesocycle is when you know that you've got a deload coming up, for example. So you might have seen it on my Instagram stories if you do follow me on Instagram, Little Soul Lewis Neil _coaching. You probably already follow me anyway, but the week before a deload is when I what's called overreach. So that's where your intensity is really pushed really high. Why? Because the next week that you can recover, and you've got a little bit, you're not going at the same intensity that you was the previous week. It's a little bit of a rest period, and I've got that coming up. So I can afford to push things a little bit more than usual, knowing that I'm not going to have to push again next week. So an overreach week is good in order to push the intensity quite high, which I have done this week, and will last session probably tonight. So yeah, basically make things hard. If it's challenging, you're doing something right. If your form is there, you're doing something right. If you're feeling it on the target muscle, you are doing something right. But it is important that you're not cheating yourself. You're not going, oh, this is too easy, and you're telling me that it's hard. You just need to go at a decent level of intensity and really challenge yourself. The other thing that I wanted to speak about as well was what's called instant gratification versus delayed gratification. So this is completely off topic, and I'll try and link it into each other. It can be linked, which I'll get to in a minute. But basically, instant gratification comes down to like habits and delayed gratification. So instant gratification basically means you do something and you get instantly rewarded for it, and this doesn't really happen with good habits. This only tends to happen with bad habits, which is why it's easy to slip into a bad habit quite quickly. So an example of this would be, if I ate a bar of chocolate, I get an instant I get instant satisfaction from the chocolate. That was a long one. But basically, by giving me the taste, by giving me me palate, I feel great, I've had chocolate, all these different things. Instant gratification is right now. I'm getting that effect right now But if you was to eat that bar of chocolate 3 times a day for 8 weeks, then obviously that you'd end up putting on weight probably. I'm not saying that, I'm not demonizing chocolate or nothing like that. No, I'm just saying that if this was a bad habit that you had, then down the line you'd see issues there. Whereas delayed gratification is where you do a good habit, so it might be the likes of you might have just an example again. You might have like chicken and rice. Let's just go with the standard chicken and rice versus a pizza for your lunch, and you've chose that chicken and rice 5 times out of the over the pizza. At the time, you don't get instant gratification with that chicken and rice. It doesn't make you feel amazing. Probably doesn't taste as nice as the pizza would. But again, 3, 4, 5 weeks, 6 months down the line, when you've made them decisions to have that over the pizza every day, the rewards are there. It's delayed, but 6 months later, you'll be in a better position physically, probably. You're not more energy, your skin's a lot clearer, all these different things, but it's delayed. So that's why it's a lot harder to create a habit, which is good, because it takes time in order to get reward. And us as human beings, we want things now. We want it to be rewarded straight away. If we want something, if we go and do something, then we want the reward right now. Same as why people probably don't like work as much, and this might sound like I'm going a little bit off topic, but it's linked to delayed gratification, because especially if you're employed, if you go to work, you do a month's worth of work, 4 weeks, and then you get paid. You don't get paid after your first day. It's delayed, so you do all the work and then get rewarded at the end of it, which is delayed. Whereas if it was instant, you'd get paid straight away. So that's just another little link to that. But how do I link that to intensity? So obviously, at the time when you're doing hard stuff, it's not very nice. So it's bound to be challenging. It's bound to make you feel a bit, lightheaded. It's bound to make you feel like you don't want to come to the gym that often. The gratification isn't instant, but again, if you turn up every day and you're doing this and you're working hard and you're putting the effort in, 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the line, you will see the physical benefits. You'll feel the mental benefits. You'll be stronger. You'll be fitter. You'll be faster. So that's why it's probably hard, why people really don't go to good intensity, is because, again, one, it's challenging, but 2, there's no instant reward from it. You don't look in the mirror and go, bloody hell, I've changed loads. You don't get that until like 3, 6 months down the line. So, couple things off the back of that. Be patient. Be patient with habits and creating them. As we all know, the good habits take time, 66 days on average. But also be patient with your training. So keep smashing it, keep turning up day in, day out, and working hard in order to get your goals. So yeah, nice and quick podcast today. Nothing major to talk about. Again, these are some things that I've spotted with clients that we wanted to go over with a couple of people, and some things that I've seen and been listening to this week. So hopefully you did find this podcast useful. I know that people tend to zone out after like 15-20 minutes, so I'm going to try and keep these short from now on, between 10 and 20 minutes. If you do like them, again, feel free to share them. It does do me a massive favour. It shows me to more people, helps people out massively. If you know someone who's sitting on their phone for 5 minutes in between sets, then get them to listen to this podcast, and of course leave me a little review if you can as well. So if you have any questions about anything, or you're enjoying the podcast or anything like that, feel free to drop me a message on Instagram, email me, whatever your source of communication is, and I look forward to hearing from you. So yeah, thank you for listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Have a great weekend, guys, and I'll speak to you very soon.